My name is Geno. Actually, CR testimony. There we go. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, and I struggle with alcohol. And my name is Geno.
Hey, Geno.
And I quit using this testimony quite a while ago because I got a lot of years in this thing. And so instead of starting at the beginning, I started at about 7 or 8 years and went on with, and I'll end with the 9th step promises anyway. But Matt kind of jumped me a little bit. He said, it's a whole new crowd and they really don't know where you came from. And so instead of starting at 8 years, I'll start with, I'm one of those who experienced a long time of recovery followed by an even longer time of relapse. So let me begin. I was born over 75 years ago into a really, really good family. My father was a career Army officer and he was like the real hero in my life. I used to walk down the street, he'd be in uniform, and I'd just go, I hope everybody knows that's my dad. And it was a great childhood. We grew up in a Methodist church, part of a youth group, a real Leave It to Beaver family. I'm here to prove to you, though, that you don't have to have had an abusive childhood. You don't have to have grown up in a dysfunctional home to find yourself in the grips of an addiction. You can have a perfect childhood. Somewhere during my high school years, I started just feeling uncomfortable in my own skin. And one day when I was 14, a friend of mine's parents, we lived around the Bay Area of California, and they went to Reno for the weekend, leaving a booze cabinet full of everything imaginable. Everyone else had a couple of beers, had a blast playing softball out in the street, but I couldn't get away from that bar. I got stone drunk. They had to carry me home. And as I was laying there in my bed with the room spinning, I'm going, I have found my place. This is what I really, really like. And the only problem was I couldn't figure out how I was going to be able to stay sober long enough to be able to earn enough money to even be that village drunk. Again, this was the 60s. I lived near San Francisco. And I got a cure for alcoholism. It was called LSD. And so I was part of the hippie subculture. I fell right into the hippie lifestyle. I ate a lot of acid. I skipped out of school every weekend, and I lived rock and roll, sex, and drugs in the city. Well, rock and roll and drugs. And life was great until the principal of my school told my parents that he thought I was dealing drugs at school. And I never dealt anything at school. In fact, LSD wasn't even illegal then. And so the problem was my parents freaked out, and the cure for juvenile delinquency back in those days was to send them off to the Army. So at 17 years old, I ended up in the United States Army. I was fortunate. I was a halfway decent trumpet player, and I became a Army bandsman. So right into the right place. Out of 38 musicians, I don't think one of them didn't use drugs or alcohol.
Yeah, I believe that.
So soon though, I ended up in Vietnam. And what a place for a hippie. Yeah, all the pot a person could ever smoke. It was, but things kind of happen in wars, and things that 17-year-olds really shouldn't experience. Issues I deal with even to this day. But that's a total another story in itself. And by the way, though, on my way to Vietnam, my 30-day vacation, I met my wife. And so I wrote her a bunch of times. She never wrote back. And so anyway, so by the time I was 19 years old, I was back home out of the Army. I felt extremely old. I mean, I was in a college and there were people older than me and everything, but I felt like the oldest person there, having gone through war and all that. And so I got down to really some serious school, drinking, and doping. And after an unusually bad LSD trip, we set the bow. We had an old 54 Willys wagon. We set the bow north and drove. until we headed out of gas. It ran out of gas at Minnesota and Spenard. So we got jobs that very day, and then I got into an apprenticeship program. My first job was out of the Naval Air Station at ADAC. I'd put myself to sleep every single night drinking and smoking pot. I really began to feel lost. I just couldn't stop drinking. Then a coworker in the room next to mine started telling me about Jesus. I started listening. Then one day after work, I got down on my knees and I asked Jesus Christ to come into my life. I got up, I went back to my knees and I said, Jesus, if you just make me straight, I'll serve you the rest of my life. And I was instantly delivered from drugs and alcohol. And I lived a wonderful life for 20 years. I experienced complete freedom from substance abuse. Great story, if it had ended that way. But one night, on an Alaska Airlines red-eye flight out of San Francisco headed to Juneau, I was served a midnight meal and had this little tiny bottle of champagne, a little round bottle with a stem on it, you know, cute little thing. And no one-shooter champagne can get anybody drunk, right? But if you're an alcoholic like me, there's a little switch in the back of your head. And when alcohol goes by it, that switch goes ding, and that's it. All bets are off. So I got drunk. I missed my connection in Seattle to Juneau, and that started a 20-year hell on earth experience. We read Matthew 12. It goes Matthew 12:43. When an unclean spirit comes out of a man, it passes through an arid place seeking rest and does not find it. Then it says, I'm going to return to the house I left. On its arrival, it finds the house vacant, swept, clean, put in order. He goes out and brings in 7 other spirits worse than him. And they go and dwell there. And the plight of that man is worse than the first. So it'll be with this wicked generation. When you know the truth and you have fellowship with Jesus Christ, then turn your back on him, life gets far worse than it ever was before. I tried hiding it, but if you're an alcoholic like me, it doesn't go too long before everybody knows that you're drinking. I kept saying, I beat this once, I can beat it again. The truth of the matter is I didn't do it the first time, Jesus did. I started collecting DUIs. I gotta let you know, every time I drank, I didn't go to jail, but every time I went to jail, I was drunk. So, my first recovery, I was given sobriety freely by grace. This time, I have to do it differently. I have to work for it. I really didn't want to become a member of AA. I was a bunch of losers, right? But in those rooms, I kept hearing people's story, and the people that were as bad off or worse than me, it's touching, that's what it was. Bad as off as I was, and somehow they were managing to stay sober. So eventually, 13 years ago, I got sick and tired enough to give it a try. I'd become physically addicted to alcohol, so I had to actually detox myself. After a week, I was able to wake up and not drink. I mean, I started off with a jug, a smaller bottle, and a bunch of shooters, and detoxed myself. It's not the best way to go. So AA got me sober, and I was going along pretty good at that. But when you're a Christian and you go to AA meetings, sometimes you get a little tripped up with the higher power stuff, you know. And I owe my sobriety to AA, but as a Christian, as I said, it's hard to sit in there and hear that stuff. You want to scream out, "It's Jesus, folks!" And so step 3 in AA says we made a decision to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood Him. So, the Bible tells us in Psalm 14:1, the fool says in his heart, there is no God. So, even though people in AA don't know Jesus Christ, they're not fools, because they know there's a God. And that's enough to get a person started. So, and I believe that God's interested in all people. You know, He wants a better life, even for those that haven't met Him face to face. And Paul was walking up to Mars Hill, and he looked up to the people and he said, men of Athens, I see that in every way you're very religious. For as I walked around and examined your object of worship, I even found an altar with the inscription, to an unknown God. Therefore, what you worship as something unknown, I now proclaim to you. So, sometimes during an AA meeting, I want to just cry that out. I want to proclaim, this is what you're looking for. And, but I thank God daily for having brought me into the fellowship of AA and given me the tools to work a program that's kept me sober. So 6 years into sobriety, a friend of mine, James Joyce, started telling me about CR and how they recognize that higher power is Jesus Christ. So 10 years ago, I'm reading an old one here. That was 10 years ago. So I walked into a CR meeting and I found a home. I knew at once that this is what was missing in AA. So some of us, it's hard to put it this way when you believe in grace and everything, but some of us have to work for sobriety and to stay sober and truly find a home here in these rooms. Philippians 2:12 says that every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is the Lord to the glory of God. Therefore, my beloved, we have always obeyed, not only in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. So it's scriptural. You got to do some work. And again, I am not knocking grace. I'm just saying that if you take grace and spit on it, you got a problem. And that's what I did. I turned my back on grace. And so this program has restored my relationship with my family, with my church, and my fellows. So going through, I'm going to push Journey Begins. Going through the Journey Begins men's study with my brothers, it's been a growing experience and it's changed my life. We recently started another small group of Journey Begins, and it's in the starting stages. If you haven't gone through it, I know I differ a little bit with her. I think you need to be in it. And if it didn't work, you get a chance to do it again. Because if you hang out, you're going to go over and over and over. We also have the Journey Continues, which is the second set. And so then when another Journey Begins starts, then you go in there and you work with someone else. And it to me, it's been the meat and potatoes of this program, is to getting into those studies and working with each other. I've gained a whole new working relationship with my local church, and I make an AA meeting every day. If you drank once a month, you ought to think about going to a meeting once a month. If you drank once a week, you ought to go to a meeting once a week. If you drank every day, you might go to a meeting every day. But if you drank all day long like I did, I got an AA meeting at noon, I got a CR meeting at 6. I try and put as much into recovery as I did into drinking. And I put a lot of time into drinking. My pages are stuck. Okay. CR works, but you gotta work it. And it takes, so life isn't perfect now. And I'm going to quote Habakkuk 3:17. It says, though the fig tree does not blossom, and there be no fruit on the vine, and the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no meat. Though the flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls, yet will I rejoice in the Lord, and I will joy in the God of my salvation, for God the Lord is my strength. And thanks for listening. My name is Geno, and I'm still a sinner, saved by grace.
Hey, Geno.
Hey, Geno.